Commission, INEC. The impression seems to be that rather than the process of elections getting better, it's getting worse, with the credibility of that process effectively torpedoed, and with it the democratic aspirations of the Nigerian people. And that, of course, has a knock-on effect on the quality of the leadership that emerges from such a flawed process. And this reflection is particularly important because there are elections coming up in a few weeks' time in Ondo and Edo states, which will once again test INEC and its ability to prevent electoral malpractices. So how do we prevent electoral rules from being violated once again? What urgent reforms can be put in place to improve compliance, accountability, and integrity? Well, the former Minister of Aviation and former PDP governorship candidate in Anambra State, Chief Osita Chidoka, who is the founder of the Athena Center for Policy and Leadership, has come up with analysis of recent elections held in Kogi, Bayelsa, and Imo states in 2023, and recommendations he believes INEC should urgently implement in the upcoming Ondo and Edo elections. And Osita Chidoka joins me now in the studio. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you very much.
And in collaboration with the Athena Center for Policy and Leadership, which you founded and you're the Chancellor, you've essentially done this rather big review of how the off-cycle elections in Kogi, Bayelsa, and Imo states were conducted in 2023 and the results. Summarize your approach and your findings for us.
Thank you very much, Charles. First is that I was not the PDP governorship candidate in Anambra. I was in the UPP governorship candidate.
Okay.
But just by way of correction.
But you are in the BDP now,
yes,
though.
And
okay.
What we did is we're a research institution, the Athena Center. And we have 5 focus areas. We're focused on governance, on education, health, and elections. And the idea is to be able to interrogate what is happening in these sectors and proffer solutions. So our study is not to criticize the election, but to see what are the gaps and to improve it. And we saw a number of gaps. So we went to the IREV of INEC and downloaded results, all the results they have there. And there was about 97–98% upload of results. We then wrote a Freedom of Information request to INEC, and they gave us the BVAS data. What the BVAS said, it accredited on election day. INEC's rule says if there is no accreditation, there will be no voting. So the BVAS accreditation is the gold standard for the election. So we got that. Then we wrote a further Freedom of Information request and requested for Form EC8B, the ward collation results, from EC8C, the local government collation results, and from EC8D, the state result that announced the results of the election. And then we asked for ECG40, the one that INEC feels to show where no elections happened due to maybe violence or whatever happened. So we got all that. We digitized all that information and we reviewed them. So we checked. Wherever the total votes does not match with the BVAS accreditation, we knew that something had gone wrong.
Right.
And averagely in 70% of the cases, the BVAS and the total votes matched. We saw accreditation from the polling unit, accreditation from the ward collation, but we saw that in about 70-something% of the case. In fact, in some cases, almost 80%. So I must say that the technological improvement in INEC has impacted our elections positively.
Right.
The results from those polling units were consistent. Now, you must say that what I'm saying is that the BVAS and the total votes matched. We did not attest to the veracity of the vote allocation. You see, you can have 100 votes from the BVAS, 100
yes.
total votes, but you can reallocate them and give X 20, S, Y 30. But in this case, we saw that they matched, so we take it as a given. Then we looked at the places where it did not match, and that was quite revealing. In most cases, in about 3 local governments in 1 senatorial district, some in about 5 local governments, about 70% of the votes that did not match of the polling units where the total vote did not match with the BVAS occurred in all the states. And we sequestered all those states, all those areas. And in the case of non-compliant polling units, in Kogi there was 786 non-compliant polling units. In Imo there was 1,101. In Bayelsa there was 338. So it was about 15% in Bayelsa, 23% in Imo, and about 22.5% in Kogi. Now what happens is that because of the rule says, if this does not match, cancel. So we then removed all those non-compliant PUs, polling units, and then tabulated the results based on the polling units that were compliant. Because the collation officers are required by the INEC rules and the law that when you get a result from a polling unit, you are supposed to check the BVAS and confirm the total accreditation before you enter the results. So in most cases, these electoral officers, the presiding officers wrote the wrong thing, and the collation officers did the wrong thing. In a few cases, the collation officers...
And do you think that was a mistake, or it was a conscious effort to manipulate the process?
In our view.
Right,
Because it was too wide to be a mistake. In fact, we gave an allowance. Wherever there is a 5 plus or minus votes, 2 votes, 3 votes, we considered it human error. So we have those polling units where we saw, as they were calculating, they could have made an error.
Right.
But when we saw a polling unit that accredited 400 voters and then wrote 750, we didn't think that was something in the realm of mistakes.
And just to be clear, what level of expertise was applied in analyzing and assessing all that data? Because people would want to know that in order to be sure. I mean, you are a law student now, but are you also a qualified data analyst, or was it your organization that did the sort of the data analysis? I'm wondering how you...
So I have a master's degree in public policy.
Right.
And analysis. So
because I know you did a lot of number crunching for the PDP.
Yes, I was a director of voter intelligence. I was director of the Situation Room in 2019.
Right.
So I have sufficient knowledge of how elections work. And the team that worked with me, without being immodest, all top quality people, first class in their different...
So they're data analysts of repute.
Yes, of repute.
Right,
we worked with SAP and all of that. And we use modern tools.
Right.
So all our tools are open. We're going to soon upload everything on the web so people can go and drill down to their local government, to their ward, and to their...
So what do your findings tell us? I mean...
The findings tell us, number one,
right,
that technology has impacted Nigeria's election positively.
Right.
INEC's investment in technology is yielding dividend. That's number one finding for us. Number two finding is that our votes count. So if you say you're not going to the polling units because they've rigged it, is a lie. They actually are manipulating it at the polling unit. So you need to go to the polling unit to vote. The people are getting it wrong when they said, oh, it's been manipulated. No, it's not. You have to come to the polling unit to manipulate it. So people have to go to the polling unit, make sure they vote, and make sure that the votes are entered into the Form EC8B. So that's number two. Number three is that we saw that the quality of manpower that go as presiding officers and collation officers seems to be off the radar. We don't seem to know who they are. They are youth corpers, they are staffers, they are brought from different places, and nobody cares about them. So they can manipulate these things and hide under INEC. So there is no such word like INEC. That's one of the things I have demystified in this report. The report was done by a human being, an individual. And most times, that individual is working in the local government of the person that he's working for, or neighboring local government. So meaning that they were recruited either with the support of these local chieftains or the candidates. So when you look at those local governments, and when you look at local governments further away from the contenders, you will see that there is less, there's less corrupt practices. But when you come to these two, like in Kogi, in Adavi, in Okene and Okehi local governments, it was, massive.
Your findings, you talk about corrupt practices. I mean, obviously, your data supports the point that you're making.
Yes.
What sort of impact would your findings have on the outcome of those elections?
So, in two cases, and that is because when you talk about the data of this election, There are multiple other issues that we need to factor in to see what will have happened with the election if the electoral officers behaved well, did everything correctly. But in this case, what the data told us is that in Bayelsa, the APC candidates were the ones benefiting from the infractions in about 3 local governments, in Nembe, in Brass, and Southern Niger. In Imo, the APC candidate was the beneficiary of the malfeasance in Oru East, Oru West, Uguta, and Okigwe. In Kogi, the APC candidate was the beneficiary of Okehi, Okene, and Adavi. Now, what that means is that if you deduct all those votes, the candidate in Imo State still wins, because I don't think the PDP candidate and Labour candidates were formidable candidates. So across the states, the APC governor could have won without those shenanigans from what we saw. In Bayelsa, the PDP candidate still wins. So the votes that were deducted impacted APC. Their vote dropped from 110,000 down to 63. Right. In the case of Kogi, then the result is different, because the SDP candidates now have more votes than the APC candidate who came
based on your analysis.
Based on our hypothetical result, using only the INEC compliant polling unit. So when people see our numbers and see 22%, 10%, we're not talking of votes, we're talking of polling units. Because when you cancel a polling unit, you cancel all the results. So all the parties lose votes. It doesn't quite happen to one party. So when a PU has been mismanaged, so which is the problem? If you had not tampered with those PUs, it is possible that if they had used only the INEC, the BVAS numbers accreditation, the party that won will have secured their results. The APC in Okene, Okehi, and Adavi may have won the election in those local governments without damaging the results, because that's what candidates have to learn. That when you go and inflate the vote, you then damage your result, because let's say it was 300 votes that would have been the ideal number, that was the clean number. Out of that 300, you probably got 200 votes. And then you increase it to 700 to make 500 more votes. You're now losing your 200 because you're now canceling all the results.
Absolutely.
So candidates have to understand that once the BVAS is being checked, they are damaging their own result, because I believe that the APC candidate in Imo will have won in Oru East. He will have won in most of the wards in Uguta. But by those inflation, the officers did not do him a favor.
Right.
What they did was that they now damaged the results.
But you would have thought that what you're doing now is what INEC ought to be doing.
So that is where we feel that INEC is failing in one major function. That function is that the law allows INEC to review results in 7 days.
Absolutely.
So we think that INEC should announce provisional results after the returning officers have declared it. And then go back to their BVAS, compare it with the result, and discount all the votes that were higher than BVAS. Discount it. In my own case, I think they should go further. In those 7 days, INEC should buy powerful scanners in their wards or local government and scan all the paper results to be sure that the voting was for the right party. So when the scanners read them, it will be giving you the PDP votes, the APC votes, the Labour votes, and all of that. So after the scanning with a third-party verification, INEC can then come out and say, the final result is this. So even if they have those scanners, they may not even need to cancel. They may just need to go back to their scanned results and publish the proper results and not the ones. But what could happen is that they may then go ahead and thumbprint the ballot papers and mess it up. But if INEC have done the 7-day review, we will have had a better outing in this result. So we believe that they should do that.
But I'm sure you know that your political opponents are already seeing this in a negative light. They say that, first of all, I mean, you as a law student would know that the Supreme Court has begun hearing an appeal against the result of the governorship election in Kogi State, launched by the SDP, and that your report could be prejudicial, and they see it as you trying to influence the court.
Well, I don't know that I have such powers, but I know that all the documents that need to be pleaded in this election has been done in the lower tribunal. I don't think there is any new material facts anybody can bring in now at the Supreme Court level. So we were not interested in in affecting any results. I'm sure the Supreme Court is going to be facing the already entered facts.
Yeah, that is true, because you don't introduce new evidence.
You can't introduce new evidence
at the Supreme Court.
At the Supreme Court.
So basically, your analysis is that there was overvoting in those 3 elections.
Yes.
2 of which were won by the APC and won by your party, the PDP.
Yes.
And according to your calculations, if the overvoting figures are removed from the results that were announced, the APC candidates in Imo and the PDP candidate in Bielsa would still emerge victorious.
Correct.
But the one in Kogi State would not.
Well, and it will probably go for a rerun, because the SDP candidate, based on that hypothetical result, did not get the 1/3 into 2/3 of the local government. He made it in 13. So we think that the election will have ended in a rerun.
So how do we get around these alleged violations? Because I think your report also has recommendations.
Yes.
I mean, what urgent reforms are you recommending to improve the integrity of the elections? Because we know, as you've pointed out, that the next governorship ballot in Ondo and Edo State is just a few weeks from now.
Yes. So, number one issue for me as we proceed to Edo and Ondo is that, and this does not require any amendment of any law, INEC should deepen the use of technology in the election. So number one, they should upload the data from the BVAS to their IREV. They should upload the data of the BVAS to the IREV. So that it automatically makes it that we know the total number of people that have voted in the election from all the BVASs, and BVAS can't lie. Number two, the BVAS has an e-collation system. And if it doesn't, INEC should introduce it. That the results of the counting of the results should be entered into the BVAS for each party. And the party agents will sign on the BVAS. And then they will then manually record it in the EC8A. Now, what that does is that the arithmetic errors which were widespread in the election results, we saw so many cancellation days, will be eliminated. And the BVAS, the upload to the BVAS will be the results that came from the BVAS, not the ones they snapped.
Right. Okay.
So they can do both, the one from the BVAS and the one that they snapped. Now, what that will do immediately is that it will eliminate errors, and it will eliminate the possibility of entering more votes than the BVAS has accredited. So the system will be set that once the total votes is more than the BVAS accreditation, the result will not go. That's one. Very
briefly, because we're almost out of time.
I think that they should also upload the word collation results. When we get to EC8B, INEC, immediately after collating it, again, they should use a BVAS to collate it, enter it online, and then copy it out manually. Once they do that, they should upload it, so that we will be sure that what happened in the polling unit is what entered in the word collation. Once that is done, I believe that if they try it out in Edo and Ondo State, the election will be wonderful.
Well, I hope you're going to write a recommendation, forward that recommendation to INEC.
Oh, yes.
So that they can take note. But I mean, it sounds like you've done a thorough job there. We want to thank you very much indeed for coming in to share it with us.
Thank you so much.
Chidoka is the founder and chancellor of the Athena Center for Policy and Leadership, in addition to being a former minister of aviation and a former governorship candidate in Anambra State. Great to see you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charles.